Kristen, thanks so much for joining us and taking time out of your day to talk with us about BC and licensing and everything like that. Bobby and I were kind of chatting before this episode. For me personally, like BC is kind of foreign to me. Its focus is more on the FO space. So I think that I'll probably learn a lot and be asking a lot of questions here. And Bobby, I know you probably know more than I do, but maybe obviously not as much as Kristen here.
Yeah, just a
So
teeny bit.
yeah.
I'm also
um,
trying to keep BC learning about BC, so little pun. That's for Bo Suiso,
oh,
who's also not in BC, but
hopefully Bo's watching
yeah.
this. But yeah, Kristen, do you want to start us off by telling us about yourself, how long you've been in the Microsoft community, things like that? Um,
Sure, sure. I started my career in accounting, gosh, 20 years ago already. And at the time, I was working for a casino, and I was an end user using Dynamics GP.
Wow.
Got bored really quick, doing AP, and eventually they moved me into an accountant and couldn't really move up anymore. So I started applying for the jobs, and I got hired by a gentleman named Jack Boyer, who owned Boyer and Associates out of Minneapolis, and he took a chance on me. And I was a GP consultant for a while. Then I missed accounting, went back to accounting, then I missed consulting. So I've kind of juggled, in my career, this line of like I really like consulting, but I really love accounting as well. Um, so for the past 7 years, well, almost 7 years, I guess 6.5 years, I've been focused 100% on Business Central, and I've been focused on smaller businesses. So like think of the small mom and pop shops that are using QuickBooks today. We really thrive in that type of environment where they're on QuickBooks today. They want to go to Business Central type thing. We've also done like NAV to BC and GP to BC, and we just actually had a NetSuite to BC go live yesterday as well. So we do pick up other clients along the way as well. But we're really just focused on helping companies scale their operations by using the right tools and systems, right? So part of that is Business Central. Part of that's also could be like Power Automate, Power BI, things like that as well. But I'm really passionate about making Business Central as approachable as possible, especially for those growing businesses. So, I mentioned like the smaller businesses on QuickBooks. Typically, they're outgrowing QuickBooks, so they want to get on a bigger ERP. They want more functionality, things like that. So that's really our sweet spot that we focus on in the space.
And we are talking all about the mountains, and your company is named after kind of where you live, right? Or maybe even on the road you live on. It's right, right up the street from me here in Colorado.
Yeah, Mount Evans Consulting. My business is named after I don't want to say a former mountain in Colorado because they renamed it to Mount Blue Sky a couple of years ago. But I still live off Mount Evans Boulevard, so it's still very applicable to my name. But yeah, our whole theme is outdoorsy, right? So
Hmm.
like incorporating the Jeep into the marketing and scaling the peaks and things like that are all part of what I've built into the brand throughout the last couple of years.
And you just had a big anniversary. Like, was it 5 years? Six
Six
years?
years indeed. 6 years last December, so we're
Yeah, so
coming
I
up on
remember
seven this
posting. Yeah,
year. Yeah,
awesome.
pretty
Very
exciting.
cool. You're carrying on the Mount Evans legacy, even though if the mountain changed its name, that way you're still still using it. That's awesome. I like that. So yeah, you mentioned that BC is kind of more focused on the smaller, mid-sized business level. Can you explain a little bit, maybe like why that is in comparison to more so like enterprise level businesses and things like that?
It's a great
Yeah,
question, by the way. I hear it all the time, so I'm excited to even if it's like the 100th time for somebody to say it. There's so many people ask when to use BC. What's the right business? So yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this, Kristen.
Yeah, so small and mid-sized businesses are choosing Business Central because it's an all-in-one ERP solution that's going to scale with their growth. Okay, so when you think about it, it's going to combine the finance module, sales, purchasing, inventory, really all of those operating modules that you need to run a business. It's going to put all of those into one single platform. So very similar to a lot of our competitors. I know I talked about QuickBooks, things like that. You eventually outgrow it. So it's very similar. It is cloud-based, which means it's going to have that lower infrastructure cost. So you're not having that server in the back. You're not doing nightly backups. I had a client on NAV 2013 that was still going back there, and every morning they'd come in and they would put the backup on a jump drive, and that would go into a safe in the business owner's home.
Flashbacks for me. I hate.
Yeah. So just lower costs around that. There's also the regular updates, and I think also for the enterprise Savannah, you guys get regular updates. Microsoft is kicking out the major updates twice a year, and then minor updates throughout as well. But the best thing about it, because it is cloud-based, you have the ability to work anywhere. I had a client yesterday call me and she's like, hey, I'm getting ready to travel to India. Is there going to be an issue? And I'm like, as long as your IT department doesn't have like a geofence or, IP restrictions, then yeah, you're going to be able to access Business Central no matter where you go.
Yeah.
And because it's a Microsoft product, it plays really well with the tools you're already using. So think about Outlook, Excel, Teams, things like that.
Yeah.
And it has supply chain too, right? So it's got some. It's not super robust, but it does. I think a lot of people don't know that or don't realize that. They think it's just finance only.
Yeah, it's got supply chain. It's got assemblies. You can do manufacturing. There's a Shopify integration. More recently, there's subscription billing. You can do bank linking. There's just so much that you can do, and the ISV community. So if you need a plugin or you need a customization and integration somewhere along the way, I haven't really found anything that isn't possible yet with the product.
And don't forget Power Platform.
Yeah.
Got a lot of opportunity with Power Plat and AI and Copilot. So it's just it's like you said, the integration you mentioned it before is huge. Another great reason to use Microsoft's products because of the extended productivity stack tie-in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it sounds like kind of more of like a cost-effective option, like you said, for those mom and pop shops who maybe don't have X amount of dollars to be spending on that full system or things like that, but it still does all of the things it needs. And that kind of comes into the cost effectiveness of it into licensing as well. Can you speak a little bit about how licensing looks in the BC world as well?
Hopefully it's less confusing than F&O.
I don't know, because it is Microsoft licensing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's going to be two primary user licenses. And when I say the word user, kind of think of like those users that are in the system transacting, posting, things like that. So the essential license is going to cover the core functionality. So finance, sales, purchasing, inventory, project management, a little bit more than that, right? But this is going to be typically where the most companies are going to start. And then you're going to also have companies that are doing manufacturing or service management. They're going to need a premium license. So those are the two tiers. You have essentials and premium. The essential licenses, MSRP is $70 a month per user, and the premium is $100 per month per user. The way Microsoft structures the subscriptions is you can do one of really three things. You can have a yearly subscription paid annually. You can have a yearly subscription paid monthly, or you can have a monthly subscription paid monthly, but then there is a little bit of a fee that Microsoft adds on there if you do the monthly subscription. But the monthly does allow you to cancel that license at any time, so it is a nice option.
Yeah.
There's one other license type, and that's for a team member, and that's going to be light users who may just need to go in and like read data, approve workflows, edit customers, create sales quotes or purchase quotes. And those are $8 per month per user as well. And then the same subscription type things as I mentioned before. So.
Gotcha.
So it is
Yeah,
kind of
so
familiar. It is kind of similar in structure to finance and ops in supply chain. There's more options, I feel like, on that side of it, but the setup is kind of similar. A couple different tiers, that team member license for kind of that light user. Is that new, or is it always kind of been BC and finance and ops similar licensing, or is it just starting to come together to be more universal?
I don't really know, Bobby. I
Yeah.
know the licensing, those three licenses have always been there for BC.
Okay.
So,
So maybe it's more of an F&O thing moving more towards that model, just kind of thinking that's the right model because it's just very similar in structure.
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. I know we had talked about in our F&O episode about how to optimize licensing costs and everything like that. Are there ways within the BC realm to possibly optimize costs or anything along those lines?
Yeah, absolutely. So Business Central offers also a device license. So think about in the warehouse, you may have like a scanner or a shop
Mm.
floor computer. You may have like a retail point of sale terminal. So those are going to be cheaper licenses as well. So you're optimizing your costs there. The other thing that I like to tell clients is audit your user rules. You don't need to go out and buy 15 essential licenses if your CEO is only jumping in to, review things or to approve workflows. Like those can be those team member licenses as well. And that's going to come down to educating the client or the prospect during the sales process too. I mean, the partner has a responsibility to share that information and to get them into the right buckets as well. So auditing the user roles, the device licenses, take advantage of the Microsoft 365 integrations. So like we talked about Outlook, Excel, maybe you have a form that you want your vendors to fill out, and then it integrates back into Business Central to create a vendor card that may be able to take away a user license because someone doesn't have to actually go in and make that vendor as well. So just kind of looking at your processes and what everyone's doing, because just because you're doing it today in your current system doesn't mean that when you implement and go live on Business Central it has to look and feel the same way. You should be auditing what you're doing today when you're going on.
Yeah.
That's a great note anyway. Just because you're doing it this way today, always if you're upgrading, you're making process changes, review and see how you want, just don't take that for granted. Make that review.
Yep.
Yeah, how often do you guys think that you should be reviewing or auditing your systems and everything just to make sure that there isn't anything slipping through the cracks that you're paying extra for?
I mean, ideally, for sure, yearly, because you're typically going to be on that yearly subscription. But I would say even more than that. Out of all the clients that we service, we really only have one client that has a dedicated BC management team in-house that manages user security, user licenses, things like that. All the other companies that we service are smaller, and they don't really have the need to have a specific team like that. I think you could get away with doing it yearly at that point, but if you have a team, an IT department, someone managing it, I don't know, like even every 6 months, Bobby. I mean,
Yeah, I saw a company do it really well. 'Cause like you said, smaller companies, you should be able to handle it pretty easily, once a year. Even if it's small enough and you're not making a lot of changes, you're probably not even doing it once a year. It's a bigger company and they were rotating departments annually. So it wasn't like every year on January, every department is running, this, going through this process. It was just like it was offset. So in first quarter it was this department, and second quarter it was these two departments, and third quarter. So every quarter had something going on. So maybe the IT department's engaged the whole time helping out, but the company isn't like all of this all at the same time, getting crazy with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Sounds like some good advice for anyone out there listening. Maybe you haven't audited in the past year or so. That might be your reminder to
I
to
think
go
the
ahead and
key
do
is
that.
doing it, yeah, and not, and it's like if you let it slide for years and years, I mean, I think Alex Meyer, it's a lot of money you could be losing if you're not,
Yeah.
if you're over licensed, yeah,
Over licensed and people have too much access to the system and things like that too
yeah.
can just oof.
Any other tidbits of advice or anything like that along those lines that you have to offer besides,
Not
if
really
not,
around
that's fine.
licensing. Yeah, not really.
Yeah. Before you guys had mentioned like BC connecting with like Power BI, Power Platform, that seems like a big deal. I don't know if we want to dive into that a little bit too as well before we hop on.
Yeah, we definitely can. And I would assume, that the enterprise, the F&O is probably pretty similar to Business Central, except in my experience, Business Central is kind of like the little brother. Like everything has happened in enterprise first and then it eventually trickles down. So the seamless integrations are huge time savers for clients. Being able to create and send quotes or invoices directly from Outlook is going to be huge. There's that Outlook integration. And Microsoft does a really good job at conferences when they're doing keynotes or they're showing products. They do a really good job showing that Outlook integration. A lot of clients don't even know about it. They've been on Business Central for years and they don't know about it. But what I will say is that Microsoft is putting a lot of time and effort and money into AI, Copilot, agents. And
The age of agentics.
yeah, and they've been teasing around this accounts payable agent. So, kind of I'm thinking back to my AP days, and I'm thinking invoices come through Outlook. Like, what is this AP agent going to do for me? Like, I probably want to have Outlook integrated because it sounds like there's going to be
Yeah.
something there. So the Outlook is going to be huge. Being able to export data to Excel. So Business Central has this capability where you can export to Excel. So if you're looking at a screen, it'll export whatever's on the screen for you to Excel. But then there's also a concept called edit in Excel where you can go to like the vendor card or the vendor list, for example. You can kick it out to edit in Excel. It'll show you all the table fields. You can update them. You can add rows and you can publish it. And now it's kicking that back into Business Central. And then also there's the team integration, the real-time collaboration. If you have a Microsoft 365 license without a BC license, so now I guess we're getting back to licenses here, Savannah, you can kind of have read-only access to Business Central. So Bobby doesn't have a BC license. He has no, business being in there. But he has a Microsoft 365 license. We can enable him to see some stuff through Teams if he needs to collaborate and do things like that. So those are going to be huge time savers. And then, of course, we also have the Power Platform. I don't know if we should get into that right now, Savannah, or if you have any questions about any of these other seamless integrations I talked about.
There's just so many. And the cool thing, I think, my advice would be, and see what you think, Kristen. I mean, going to community events to hear what people are doing. So you might not know what you're missing. I mean, sometimes it's hard to sit down and think, what can the system do for me? It's just too nebulous. You don't know what you don't know. But if you go to local events, national events, you start to feel for what is the possible. Look at Tech Talks, listen to Kristen when she's on podcast. I mean, just any of these moments where you can say, "Oh, I didn't realize I could do this." Now your brain does start to go put yourself around. Well, I wonder if it could do this thing for me. Like you said, if something comes into my email, could it automate it for me? And then you can ask your IT or you can ask your partner, or you could do your research to see if it's possible. So, getting out there and looking at education, being with the community is going to help that
Yeah.
tremendously.
And this is why I'm such a cheerleader, Bobby, for the community organizations out there, because as an end user, you may not be getting information from your partner. They may not have a monthly newsletter. They may not have monthly lunch and learns. Like they implemented you, and you never hear from them unless you email them a support ticket.
Right.
I really encourage you to get out, go to the forums, go to these user group regionals, meetups, whatever it is, right? And network, because to your point, Bobby, like, you don't know what you don't know. And a lot of our client base, we didn't even implement. They've come to us through word of mouth, or for several reasons they will come to us. But one of the things that they always say is, like, the knowledge you have and the amount of knowledge that you share through blogs or through things like this, like, they're like, our partner never did that. We never heard from them. So I would say, red flag if your partner is not continuing to support you in that way as well, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you can take that even from what I was talking about with the seamless integrations, like, your partner, that's an easy thing for your partner to, like, throw out there. Hey, did you know you could do this, right? Did you know this was possible? So yeah, getting out there is going to be huge.
Yep.
Yeah, there's so many educational opportunities. I know that's something Bobby and I have talked about in past podcasts and everything like that. Like, there's multiple per month even, and most likely there's a couple in your hometown area as well. So, or even just like online sessions as well. You don't even have to leave the comfort of your home, which is really awesome.
I'm tracking all this, and yet there's some weeks I'm like, how can I can't even get enough stuff out socially to support all the events that are happening within a week sometimes. Like, there's 5 in a day, virtual, live. It's just, it's amazing the amount of content that's out there now. It's hard. It really is hard to keep up. I've seen people posting on LinkedIn, like, how do I even keep up? Like, what are the tactics to keep up with all the content and even consume it all? It's just, there's just so much. You just got to, pick your battle and go,
Yeah, you can't. And this is a great segue, Savannah, into, like, the next part of what I wanted to talk about, which is the Power Platform. Because typically that's a part of Business Central and the integration side of things that a lot of users don't even know about. They talk about Business Central having workflows. Well, I would say that they're pretty basic workflows. So when you get to a point where you've outgrown them or you have different requirements, you're going to need to look at Power Automate. And these conferences that we're talking about in these user groups, they're covering all of these platforms. So, you got the Power BI, which is going to bring your data to life. With interactive dashboards and real-time analytics, so you can plug that into Business Central. You can plug it into, like, your general ledger entries table, and you can start slicing and dicing the data or looking at customer KPIs and things like that. The Power Automate is going to automate repetitive tasks like approvals, notifications. It also can take data from one system and import it into another using APIs. There's actually a lot of pretty cool things that I've seen come out of Power Automate just in general.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the Power Apps, which is, Microsoft says it's like a low code, no code solution that you can connect to Business Central. We had a client build a Power App to do a stock count in their warehouse. They weren't using devices, but they needed to do a stock count. So we created a Power App that they can go around and scan barcodes and do that. And it was a quick way to save a lot of time in in the grand scheme of things for doing a stock count. So, when you look at these tools and then you look at plugging them into Business Central, you're just empowering the businesses to extend BC without having a huge cost or, like, even heavy development, because these tools are, I'm not going to say that they're easy to use. I definitely think you have to have a skill set to get into them and get them used. But, once you have it up and running, it's just so easy.
Yeah.
Yeah, sounds like there's an abundance of tools, and that's why we're so happy to have you on today, Kristen, is to educate everyone. And we really wanted to have a full-fledged view of licensing, whether that's on FO, BC, things like that. So, yeah, it's been really great to have you today. Is there anything else that you feel like we need to touch on or anything like that before we kind of head off? Or
I'm
No,
going to
I
ask you a
mean,
question, Kristen, if you don't mind.
go ahead.
And because I thought we were going to talk about it a little bit when we were talking about BC and small business, but I got asked so often in the last year, what's the difference between BC and F&O?
Oh, geez,
How do you
BC.
answer? How do you answer that question? I answered it. I have my own answer, but I don't know if it's not. I don't, it's subjective, obviously.
Um,
But
I
just
mean,
wonder what your answer is.
I think for me, I would look at the number of users needed and probably the yearly revenue, gross revenue. Um, I'm not going to go to like Marriott hotels and put them on Business Central. That just it wouldn't work, right? So to me, that's where I'm looking mostly at. I do have prospects that have come to me and they're like, we're looking at Business Central, we're looking at F&O, and I hear their story and I'm like, cross F&O off. Like, you're not big enough, and there is a huge difference in implementation costs
Right.
and even support costs between Business Central and F&O.
Time to implement is
Yeah,
much
yeah,
shorter for BC, right?
yeah, absolutely.
good answer. Bobby, what does your answer does your answer sound similar to
Yeah,
when
very
people
similar.
ask you
Yeah,
that?
I think
Yeah.
there's definitely that threshold that Kristen mentioned, um, but there's a case by case basis. Sometimes if it's a super simple business, maybe they edge above that threshold. It's like, hey, yeah, your business is so simple, even though your revenue's high, you fit pretty well. Yeah, go for it. It's going to be less expensive for you. Or, man, your business is the revenue's low, but you're so complicated. You do need F&O or something. So there's always those fringe outlier cases. But I think what Kristen mentioned is kind of where my head is too. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. I think that was my basic understanding of it as well from from what I do
We
know
have
of
we have now
everything.
thirded it. Firsted it, seconded it, thirded it. So
Yeah.
there it's official.
Yeah.
Yes. The official answer. Well, cool. Anything else, Bobby? Any more questions?
Yeah, how often have you skied this season? Are you able to get out and do some skiing? Has it been good skiing? I don't ski, so I don't know. I just
I
see people
haven't been
skiing.
out. I haven't been out as much as I would like to be, but I've been out a pretty decent amount. I love spring skiing.
Mm.
Like
A bit warmer
from
skiing, yeah.
February. Well, the snow is. I'm a snowboarder, so
Okay.
like the snow just feels different. But I'm heading out this weekend. We actually have Mary Myers, who's in the community, coming out this weekend, and we're gonna go hit up a mountain. So by the time this podcast airs, the season will pretty much probably be done for me, unfortunately, because usually once Directions North America conference comes around, it's like we're done. So yeah.
That's funny. And so, yeah, do you do anything else like do you Jeep in the snow? Do you go in
No,
Okay, I didn't know. Yeah.
no, that
No
just
no,
doesn't sound exciting.
no snow
Like
jeeping. Yeah.
a lot of people do. They'll put chains on, and they're like,
I
"Oh, it's
figure, yeah.
totally safe." And I'm like, you know what? I don't want to be like feeling like I'm gonna slide down a ditch.
Yeah,
That
or
just
if you do
doesn't
get stuck,
sound.
then you're deal. If something happened and you're stuck, then you have to deal with the cold being stuck. Then you end up like Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shining. Sorry, ruined it for everybody who hasn't watched it. But yeah, you're frozen solid, as
Yep.
opposed to get stuck in the summer. Who cares? Yeah, crack a beer and wait it out or whatever.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I feel like
So.
half the fun of, at least for me, like riding a Jeep is having the doors off and everything, right? I don't know if that's the same for you, Kristen, but it's like you can't
Oh,
really, I mean, you could, but you'd be really cold. So,
Listen. So I had a Jeep. I don't know if I've told you, Chris. I had a Jeep growing up. So I bought a Jeep when I was probably 18 or 19. I had a CJ5, a 78. No, it was a 1980 CJ5. So short body, had the big tires. It was a cool little Jeep. I loved it for the couple years. It got smushed by a tree
mm,
in a tornado that felled a double forked oak right on top of I was coming home from work, and it was late, and I'm driving up the street to my house. I was still living at home, and I'm driving up. My dad's out, and he's directing the traffic with the lights, and he's like waving people off because the tree took down all the electric lines, and so it was dangerous. So he was waving people off. So I parked and got out. I was like, "Hey, what's going on?" He's like, he's telling me, and I said, "Well, did you move my Jeep before?" And he's like, "No." He's like, well, "Where's my Jeep?" And he pointed upwards the street, and you could barely, as I shined the flashlight, you could see the reflection off of the license plate. Just between the fork of the trees, you could see the little bit of a grill, and yeah, it was done for. It buried the engine in the ground. I mean, it was just a bad deal. I was so sad to have lost that. I almost bought another Jeep recently. It just got talked out of it as a car because of the gas mileage. So I had to get something a little bit more. But I do miss it. Like you said, taking the, for me, I don't know where Kristen is, but I'd take the doors, the top off. That was a soft top, so I would take it off whenever it got warm enough on the East Coast and leave it off the entire. I never put it back on. It just stayed off the entire year until it got cold again.
Does sound fun.
Mm-hmm.
Well, not the tree smashing part, but
The tree smashing part was sad. Yeah. And even if it rained, I didn't care. Like if it was raining, my interior was all vinyl, so whatever, gets a little wet, doesn't matter.
Yeah, especially if you're 17, who cares?
Yeah, it's like I felt like you should have it off riding in the rain. It's a little bit avant-garde. Yeah.
Well, fun. Well, Kristen, if I ever make it out to Colorado, I'll be sure to hit you up, and of course Bobby as well. And thanks again for joining us today and sharing all of your insights and knowledge. We've really appreciated it. So yeah, thanks again.
Yep, it's good to see you, Kristen. Looking forward to see you again. I guess I'll probably see you because we don't have a local meeting, so probably won't see you till DynamicsCon.
Sounds about right.
Nice to see you online.
Yeah.